The following program is presented by Ride the Wave Media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for all our videos at Ride the Wave Media Podcast. Enjoy the program.
Hey there, folks. It's Just Blane here with Ride the Wave Media, and I got to show you this clip here from the Witch Movie Project. When me and Courtney Pearl from Practically Magick went out to the cemetery that they filmed Hereditary in, and what we did was a film analysis. We broke the thing down, sitting right there where Ari Aster and the A24 crew filmed the movie in Sandy, Utah. I won't give away the actual address, but it is beautiful out there. But here, go take a watch and take a look at this video, because we had a great time doing this, and I didn't want it to go to waste. I want you to see it.
Now, this movie, if you haven't seen it, it's feel good. It's a laugh a minute, right? It's a great flick.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Oh, yeah. Family.
Smiling ear to ear when you're watching this movie. Am I right?
Beautiful, loving family, lives in a beautiful mountain range home.
I mean, it's all fun and games.
Got an awesome tree house.
Right,
What more could you ask for?
If
Great American family.
If your idea of a good time revolves around heart palpitations and sweating, then yes, you'll enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
But it's another A24 film, and it is a miserable watch. Once again,
Yeah.
which is a common theme in the A24 movies. And hey, I mean that in the best kind of way, because the atmosphere, everything from the beginning of this movie is, we're sitting here.
Fantastic.
It feels, there's an atmosphere even sitting here. I mean, we are in a cemetery, so.
Which is where I find a lot of peace and comfort,
It
personally.
It is peaceful out here.
Yeah.
Not that part though. Not, you can already tell in the beginning of this movie that, you know what? Did you have some more thoughts on Return to Oz? Because
Well, I will say, so the headless part.
yeah.
I remember, so we kind of showed at the event the little golden books they had of Return to Oz. I used to have one when I was a kid. And this may speak to my morbid fascination with things. I don't know. But I remember being obsessed with that book. I remember looking at the pages so carefully, the cabinets full of heads.
Oh.
And then the part where they're screaming. So they had an illustrated version of these heads and they're like, mouths are open. I remember staring at that. I was probably 5 years old and I was just like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And I had never seen the movie, not then. So I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is not the Wizard of Oz that I know.
Yeah, right.
And I'm looking at it real hard and I kept thinking, am I allowed to look at this? Is this okay? I'm a kid. But I was fascinated with the headless heads and the Princess Mombi chasing her with no head.
Oh yeah.
And they're all screaming, Dorothy Gale, Dorothy Gale. It is scary. A lot of adults there that night said, yeah, I could never watch this movie when I was a kid.
I mean, even the kids there. I mean, they had their mouths open. I saw yours at one point
Yeah, I
over
took
there.
some pictures of my kids.
That was wild. What was it? The Wheelers got them?
Maybe.
I think it
Maybe
was.
some Wheelers. Maybe just the whole dark kind of feel of the film, maybe that had about it. They were just they were fascinating.
And if you
They were
thought that was dark, it's not as dark as this one.
this one, no. And
Maybe
I
it
have many
is.
people who were like, oh yeah, I like horror movies. And then I mentioned this one and they're like, oh, couldn't do that one. Couldn't
This
watch
one,
that.
now, you know what? This one, it's got a weird backstory with the movie itself, because at first it didn't have the horror elements and it was just going to be a drama. And I believe that Ari and whoever else involved wrote in the demon and stuff, and you'll get more. We'll get more.
Yeah, deep dive into that.
Yeah, into what's the demon's name?
Piamon.
Piamon. All right.
That's how I say it. I think that's how I say it. Piamon.
Piamon. But this is right from the beginning, and you have. We did a pumpkin walk and we saw a pumpkin with miniatures, and me and Courtney both were like, no, we're not getting close to that thing, because the opening shot of this movie is like, it's a miniature and it's tied into the movie big time later, but it's a miniature and you have a long, slow zoom, and then there's that cool transition.
Yeah.
Where it goes to real people walking in and you got the real stuff going on, and
very symbolic of like, we're going into this other world. This isn't reality exactly, but kind of, I don't know, but it's so like the miniatures themselves throughout the movie, they're so realistic. So when it comes and zooms in and then it comes to life. And it is the room that we're in. Yeah, a lot of symbolism going on.
There is, and you know what? I'll tell you this right now. We will not be able to get to all of it. Yeah. We will not be able to pull out every single symbol, because every time I watch this movie, I guarantee you I've seen this movie. I've seen it 10 plus times. My best friend back from Memphis, Derek, he loves this movie, and he's the one that put me onto this the first time. And he said COVID was a hell of a drug. He watched this movie about 12 times during COVID. But yeah, it's an incredible watch. It's a great watch, but you do notice something different every single time you see it.
Yep.
And it's almost like if you don't pay attention, you won't be scared.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if you watch this movie.
You know, that's true. My mom was the one who, and she likes horror movies too. She's all right with it. But I was like, this is probably, of all the lineup we've had in this series, this one I was probably the most freaked out. This is the one during watching it I was the most freaked out. But I said something to my mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, have you seen this? And she's like, oh yeah, I did see that one. It was all right. I didn't really get that scared. And I was like, well, did you see this? And did you see this? And she goes, oh, I didn't notice any of that.
Yeah, see?
I'm like, you weren't paying attention. You got to watch it again.
It's very subtle. There's so many subtle little things, and it takes you off guard. It's a boring watch if you don't pay attention.
I know.
It really is. It's a boring watch, and that means
what's happening?
Yeah, you've got to really look at this movie from a different perspective when you're watching it, and sure, watch it for what it is the first time. And then when you start thinking about stuff, you go back and be like, oh my gosh, they did this. Ari did all that for a reason. Like, it was all on purpose.
It's brilliant.
It
is brilliant.
The opening of the movie basically is when Toni Collette, her mom in the movie has passed. And yeah, we'll get to Toni Collette. But her mom in the movie has passed, and they are in this cemetery right here where we sit, this mountain range. Still a little weirded out. But
yeah,
they
just kind of feel like it's just kind of a your good old average old lady dies, and
it is. And then you get to the funeral here, and there's even subtle references here, because she even says so many new strange faces here.
Yeah,
my mom would have been.
Where did you all come from? I didn't see any of you in the last several years, and like, you know, kind of a vibe.
Ever, yeah, like ever in your entire, and my mom's the whole life. So who are these people that were here? First of all, you got these unsettling. It's an unsettling eulogy, really. Like, the whole thing is weird. It's awkward. I've been to funerals. They're not fun. They're weird and awkward already. Yeah. This one takes it to another level already.
Yeah, the people. There's certain faces that you see later in the movie. So if you're not paying attention, you'll see like, oh, these people that are at this funeral, they kind of give the little girl a look.
Yeah.
This one guy, and you see him later.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got all this stuff already setting up in the beginning opening scene that appears to be a normal funeral. It is not. It's Annie is Toni Collette's character. So Annie's mom is the one that passes away. Charlie is the daughter. And you already see that she's a little quirky.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to put that?
Yeah. She's probably born with some
abnormalities. Yep.
And some, she talks about like, they are sure to mention, like, she takes out a candy bar and they're like, oh, does that have peanuts in it? She's got allergies.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things, that's a really interesting thing that we'll talk about later when we talk about what may be going on with the daughter, which is, you know, that she's born with some illnesses and some abnormalities that kind of hint at maybe there's a connection there.
It does, and she gives off the vibe. She's the actor who played Charlie's amazing too, because the role for that is
everybody's so good,
tough, and it's an incredible performance. But she really does. She basically embodies nope. I don't want nothing to do with that. Like, it's a weird feeling, and you see more of that later on. Millie Shapiro, that's who plays Charlie. Did you know she had did you know that the sound that is now etched in horror iconic, That
Yeah.
she had to perfect that. She learned how to do that.
Yeah, it reminds me of The Grudge.
It does.
Or like, yeah, I remember when The Grudge came out, this movie, for some reason, it kept bringing up Grudge vibes for, I can't exactly pinpoint why, but that sound from The Grudge that was, and everybody was hearing it.
Yeah.
And it would like freak us out. That became that. And I swear the night that we watched it, the middle of the night while I was sleeping, I swear I heard it.
Same. And I guarantee you other people here, I don't know how that happens.
What was that?
But it's wild. It's that sound effect. I thought I just heard it here. Man, I can't. I'm. What are we doing out here in the cemetery? That's what.
It'll be like right behind you in your ear. Yeah, that's brilliant though. I mean, if you really want to get into somebody's psyche and be like the psychological thrillers like this that are just, they dig deep, burrowed into your subconscious. So that
you know what? Let me go off on a rant here for just a minute, because I want to say back in my day, but it's not that. I'm not that old. But there was a time for us where horror movies at least had the decency to show you who's going to get sliced up and diced up at the beginning. Like, you knew who it was. But now we've got this psychological warfare that
it'll stay with you long after.
Instead of a 90-minute slasher film, we know what's going to happen. We see it. We can watch the 2-minute trailer and we see the whole movie from 2-minute trailer. No. You got to sit here and basically we're getting swindled out there.
Yeah.
We're getting swindled out and we're getting brought in here like this is a family drama movie, like I said. And then the pants scared off of us because, man.
Yeah. I couldn't have told from the trailer or from the poster of this movie, Hereditary. I would not be able to look at it and be like, okay, I know what's happening here. I know who the killer is. Or I know what's going to happen. I would never have been able to do that.
So, past the cemetery, we're at basically the next little bit of the movie, and this is where the creepiness, it amps up quite a bit.
Yeah.
You got Annie making these tiny little doll houses.
Which I am absolutely fascinated by. I went to like a miniatures museum in Chicago one time. They had an exhibit with like a whole room full of miniature doll houses and stuff. And I was fascinated. Things that are like teeny tiny but look real. That was like probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Look at this. She's an artist.
Those things were incredible. The miniatures they had on set were awesome. Honestly, the scene later on where it all gets torn up, I go, ooh, I cringe.
I did too. I was like, no, but that's indicative of a mother artist. You never have time to really like devote to the craft. So I really felt for her in that moment. But yeah, you got to pay attention to those scenes though, because each one is like a little clue. And it'll narrow in on that, and it'll show you something that's going on, and you're like, wait, what does that have to do with anything? And you see it throw back.
And it gets darker and darker, and basically these are little shrines that she's building towards her family dysfunction, I think is what it is. It's like she's building these little things, and she knows it in her head, or maybe it's some other supernatural, whatever's going on.
I thought maybe this was just her artistic expression and way of like processing grief, processing what traumatic things she'd experienced in her life. And I mean, that's kind of brilliant.
That's
genius.
You are a connoisseur of those kind of things, right? Don't you know quite a bit?
I had a lot of respect for that, because that's what we
IPT?
do in integrated processing technique, the healing work that I do. I don't necessarily the way that it works, it's not with art, but I have partnered it with art so that people can paint out their feelings, emotions, and grief, and whatever heaviness that they've got going on. So I had a lot of respect for that part of the movie, thinking, she's as morbid as it seems, because I could see the husband in certain parts when certain traumatic things have happened.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What if our son sees this? He lived through it, and she's like, she's doing it as if she has no problem with it at all. Like, it's not traumatic to her. I think that's kind of amazing.
Even the one that really bothered me was the telephone pole.
The telephone pole. Yep.
And she's just doing it.
She was painting the blood on the asphalt.
Yeah,
when
and
he
now
comes in, and I was like, ugh.
So don't forget about Peter, the teenage son. He's got his own issues, and he's the one who goes to the party with Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie has a reaction because she eats nuts, something with nuts in it.
Yeah, the cake has walnuts
the
in
cake,
it.
yep. And then Yeah.
She goes into what is that called? Hyper something.
Oh
shock,
yeah. You need an EpiPen
throats.
basically. You
Yeah.
should have EpiPen and.
Why they didn't have an EpiPen with them?
I don't know.
I kept shouting that at the TV screen the whole time. I'm like, "Where's your EpiPen?
Yeah,
Really, she needs it."
You would think somebody had one or somebody at that party, but then again, yeah, we know that this is going to go off the rails anyway, and this is where we really go off the rails. And if we haven't been creeped out already, well, we get a little gore.
Oh, it was pretty horrific.
They don't.
That whole scene.
They don't
driving
shy.
down the road, swerving to not hit the deer. I was like, ugh! I don't think I breathed the entire time.
No.
And then when he's sitting in the car and everybody's just frozen,
He knew.
it's like prolonged, right? Like that scene just goes on forever. And you're like, no, no, no. I just remember sitting on my couch just being like, no, he's going to look in the rearview mirror into the back seat. And I was like, no, no, no.
And he doesn't though. Like it's.
Can't even.
I can't imagine the way that's made and filmed. That's more realistic. Now this is realistic horror. What this is?
Yeah.
Because
it hits you right in the feels.
it does, and you're like, oh, what would I do? Or oh, what? I don't
know.
Oh,
the trauma of living through that poor boy. I just kept thinking, oh, that poor kid.
And that's only the beginning of the trauma in this movie, because
yeah, that's just where it begins.
it is really that is kind of where it begins, because after that, we start delving even deeper into just misery, grief, and we get to see the performance of Toni Collette from the beginning of this movie all the way. How she goes.
She's incredible, isn't she?
Who won the Oscar that year?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. And Toni Collette should have. And she didn't even get a nomination, I believe.
She's incredible. Did you ever see United States of Terror?
I did,
the TV
yes.
series
Yeah.
that she was in? Her ability to switch personalities, voice, her entire facial expression, everything is incredible. And you see that in this movie a couple of times.
Oh, a lot of
she
times.
just switches and she's different. I was trying to dress like her. I was like, I'm going to dress for the movie today. And then I realized, well, that's just kind of how I dress all the time, actually.
Yeah.
The way that she's dressed as mom in this movie.
And Toni Collette, I just got to tell you that we're sitting right here in the cemetery, and this is where all validity for the Oscars should be buried right here, because she not even being nominated. I don't care about no rules about it came out at this certain time of the year or this and that. No. She should be an honorary Oscar winner for that performance.
For
but
sure.
Yeah, go ahead. That's the
grief that she's expressing.
I still feel it.
Oh, it's cellular level grief, just pouring out of her body. She's grieving for her daughter.
If I saw her on the street, I would give Toni Collette a hug. Like I would be like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry for what you've been through. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Toni Collette,
your
our heart goes.
And then your daughter. Yeah, but pay attention to that sigil that it's on her necklace in the funeral scene of her mom. A necklace possibly, we assume was given to her by her mother.
Yeah.
So that same sigil, that same symbol is on the telephone pole.
And
right?
Let's get into this now. Let's get into the supernatural, to the whatever. Is it cult? What is it? What's happening here?
I think we're meant to believe that this is a coven. That she discovers her mother was a part of, and this woman that she meets in the grief counseling, she goes and she talks about her mother's life and her brother committing suicide, and she does say, you have to pay attention again, she says in that scene, he was trying to put people in him or something like that. The quote, she goes, he committed suicide
she put voices in him.
Yeah.
She put voices in him, or put him in him.
You find out later what that really was and what was really going on. Or at least what a lot of theories are. I mean, I think that nothing is laid out quite so simple in this movie, so you have to kind of assume and piece together the puzzles. But basically, that this coven, I prefer to call it a cult, okay? Because a coven, to me, is something lovingly pieced together, love and light, and I would rather keep it that way in my mind. But this is definitely basically a demon summoning cult that her mother had been a part of, and this woman that she meets in the movie. And what they really are doing is they're trying to revive or to possess someone with the demon of Piemon,
Okay.
who is a king of hell.
Oh.
He's one of Lucifer's most loyal demons
Okay.
of hell.
This is a real demon. This is real.
Well, real.
Well, yeah, but we've had other movies where they've made up
Yeah,
stuff.
this is something that is
The
in
Blair Witch was made
folklore.
up.
Yeah,
Like this is
Yeah.
actually in.
yeah, and
real.
that sigil is from ancient scripts. Like that's why it's a little bit like I almost wish it was made up for the movie, because when you're like kind of playing around with symbols and you're putting it on the telephone pole and you're putting it in the movie, I feel like you're asking for trouble.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's just me. But yeah, so you see that symbol throughout the whole movie. It's like etched into the attic where the body was found. Skipping around a little bit.
That's fine.
but-
We don't have to go in order. Well, I
Yeah.
want to talk about the movie just overall because
Yeah.
there's all these symbols add up to what's really going on.
So
And
Piemon he's a king of one of the kings of Solomon from the Book of Solomon, and in like the Greek version of the book talks about him. There's a lot of like references of him. Some mention him with a woman's face, and some of them don't mention him with a face at all. But the pictures that we have of him, he's riding a camel, and he has 3 severed heads.
okay.
So it's interesting because I wonder, is the sacrifice to Piemon or something to do with summoning Piemon have to do with 3 severed heads? Because by the end of the movie, we have 3
Wow.
severed heads, right?
Let's see. That's what we have you here for. That kind of insight.
It's very interesting. And
That's-
you see the triangle, the symbol
Yes.
of the triangle quite a bit. It's in the floor of the grandma's room. And when the woman that she meets
Oh, yeah.
has it in her altar space. When you see it, she's knocking on the outside and she doesn't get inside, but you can see the inside of her apartment. Has the triangle. That representative of like a conjuring. So there's a lot of like little references, those words etched into the wall behind Charlie's
Oh, yeah.
bed. And she even makes that in the miniatures, right? She's
Yeah.
even like writing that tiny little, so you have the word Sachini, which is basically a summoning word for necromancy, like bringing back to life.
Okay.
These are words that you also hear the woman shouting at Peter when he's at school, and she's like doing that spell on him. She's dispelling his spirit from his body to make way for Piemon to use his body. But it's believed, a lot of people watching this movie said that Charlie, the girl, was actually Piemon. Like
Yeah.
she was born with Piemon's spirit from this coven. So the mom had grabbed hold of her, got her claws in her, as Annie says in that one scene. So she's like, my mom had got her claws in Charlie. She didn't get my son because they were estranged at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I think the grandma, Annie's mother, was trying to possess her son. And that's why he committed suicide from trying to put voices in his head.
Inside of him. That's an amazing.
So this cult was actually, just trying to get this demon. They're all a cult of this demon, Piemon, and they're trying to get him a body.
Yeah.
But he needs a male body.
A vessel.
He needs a vessel. It needs to be male. Charlie ended up being born a female. So you see that scene in the miniatures where she's trying to feed the baby. You see the mom like trying to breastfeed the baby.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she's like she was trying to do all of the rituals and summoning and spells and whatever you want to call it to get the baby possessed with Piemon's spirit. So it was successful with Charlie. Charlie was Piemon from birth. And then when she died, which was actually planned, hence the sigil on the telephone pole.
Absolutely.
It was like made to happen so that the spirit would be free to then embody Peter. So the whole thing was getting Peter ready for him to be possessed with this demon.
Wow.
There you go.
Look at this.
Watch the movie first before you listen to all that.
Yeah, because
I just spoiled it all for you. But yeah,
but
interesting, right?
It's very interesting. And you mentioned the lady that she meets at the grocery store here.
Yes.
Now Now this is when
Yes.
this movie
She's fantastic too.
She is. This movie just keeps delving off into chaos, like
Yeah.
further into the darkest holes you can go. And she meets this lady, and she says something about a seance, basically. And Toni Collette, Annie, laughs
She's like,
off.
you can see your daughter again. I
Yeah.
saw my grandson. She thought she met her just like grief counseling, like this grief support group, when actually she wasn't part of that group at all. She just like showed up and got her little claws into Annie and was like, come on, you can do this. You can do this with me. I know it sounds crazy, but you can summon spirits. And I went to this seance and it changed my life. And I will say, just side note on that, I do believe in mediumship. I do believe in ethical mediumship. So anybody that's, trying to play upon your grief or, using your grief for earning money or, just be real cautious and careful with people who claim to be a medium or who can do a seance and contact your loved ones. First of all, make sure it's consensual and that they're ethical about it. And that's all I have to say about that.
None of
part
this
the
Miss Cleo stuff. Remember Miss Cleo? She made a whole bunch of money and then came out as a fraud and then made a whole bunch more money even.
Yeah.
Don't be
there
that.
are certain mediums I think that, and I don't even mind mediums charging for their services. I just think that people need to be cautious about, trust your instinct when you meet someone who's like, I can contact your loved ones from beyond and
$19.95 one-time payment.
Yeah.
Don't fall for that.
No. Just you can feel it when it's
Okay.
like I feel good about this person or I feel kind of like ew. Yeah, so this woman kind of preyed upon her because she's
did.
like, you're grieving for your daughter. You can talk to her again. I promise. I talked to my grandson. He was there. It was Piedmont the whole time.
Wow. And then we get the seance scene with Annie, Charlie, the dad.
Yeah, she brings them all in. She's
Well,
like,
I mean, Peter the son, I guess.
Peter, yeah, they're freaking out.
Yeah. This is, in this scene,
It's fantastic.
it is. And it's one of those, once again, it drags on. It's like, you're like, oh my gosh.
A lot of like long pauses and silences where you're like, what is happening? What's going to happen? And it just builds the intensity.
They really, Ari Aster really, we're like a cat's toy. He's out there just doing this with us.
I know,
like, that's
right?
what it is.
Yeah.
The entire movie we're getting beat up on, knowing that he can go in for the kill at any minute. But it's just relentless.
And that scene ends up kind of like it builds up and builds up and builds up. And when Charlie's voice comes out of her mouth,
Ooh, that's wild.
that's when I'm talking Oscar worthy because she changes from the mom, from Annie, into Charlie.
Charlie,
like
right
that.
there.
And her voice that comes out of her mouth, oh, it's crazy. But then it kind of falls flat, right? Like it doesn't really give you the horror like thing you're waiting for because it kind of teases you. Right?
It does.
Till later.
What happens later?
Oh my gosh. Just when it really hits the fan, like when the climax of the movie starts hitting, all I want to say is don't be fooled by the action happening in the scene. Make sure you look around in the shadows.
Yes.
Pay attention to what's going on in the dark because there's so much going on that if you were just watching the action, you'd be like, this is so boring. Peter is taking forever to get out of bed.
Yep.
That scene, right?
Yep.
Where he's like, Mom?
This is the entire end, the entire climax, the pinnacle here basically was a stage play. It's everything has got to be perfect or that doesn't happen. The entire scene can't happen. Right? Like it had to have been almost, it definitely was. It was definitely choreographed, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Because everything had to line
fluid,
up.
yeah.
It did. It had to line up perfectly or else none of that can happen. Walk us through that scene.
Ugh. Well, basically Annie, now possessed with Piedmont, okay? Dad's dead.
Oh, yeah.
In a horrific blaze of fire that Annie was trying to avoid. She was trying to say, like, you got to do this. I can't do it. But she was willing to sacrifice her own life to destroy the journal, to get, to end this whole nightmare. But when she threw it in the fire herself, it wasn't her that lit on fire. It was her husband.
Yeah.
Right. And he lights up. He's gone. And Peter's just waking up from his incident at school, and he's like looking for her. She's already there in the room.
And it's just, there's all
There's
kinds
this whole
of,
chase happening. He runs into the attic. She's banging her head on the attic door. That part freaked me out.
yeah.
I was like, oh, like that was when I started watching through my fingers by that point, when she's like trying to get into the attic. And some people asked online, they were like, well, how does she get into the attic? Because he closes the door, but there's people in the attic. There's people from the cult already waiting, already in the attic. And so when he turns around, when he finds the body missing and he turns around, she's already up there with him.
just intense. It's scary. It's so horror movies don't really scare too many people out there. There's a lot of people who can really handle them and watch them and love them because they can see through it and they're like, I get it. This is that. No, not this one though. Like this is one that will stick with you. It will scar you.
Yeah.
I'm warning you. It will scar you out there if you watch this movie.
Yeah, I think it's because it runs through a family.
Yes.
And no one, again, like a lot of our movies in this series, we've said there's no happy ending. You don't see them like make it out alive, or you don't see Peter like, you know, in those old movies when it was like Peter's the lone survivor and someone's putting a blanket around him and he's getting put in an ambulance and everybody's like, it's okay, it's gonna be all right. This is what you want to happen.
Yeah.
It does not happen.
The good old days of horror movies. They tied things up with neat, bloody bow, right?
Basically, the cult wins in this one. I mean, this is they achieve what they set out to achieve, which was to get Piem on a body to inhabit, and that's what happened.
And it leaves it kind of open. Like I mean, we're sitting here interpreting the movie, and this movie has been out for a while, and people are still interpreting different parts of it and picking out little pieces and saying, oh, well, wait a minute. I mean, you pulled out the three heads thing. Like that's amazing.
So the grandma, Charlie, and Annie eventually beheads herself.
Yep.
And I think they needed the three heads in order to conduct the
To
ritual.
get Piem
it had
on
to
there.
be like
Okay.
their payment for conjuring him and having him come back in a body.
And then so the movie ends, and we're left at home still questioning our sanity even more than
I know
when we started, right? Like that's see, we're sitting here now. I'm like,
maybe
what
I should
did
watch
we
that
watch?
again.
Yeah, I'm like, what did we see? I mean, the
That's
movie's
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah, this is the only one that after the end, all of us, I watched all of them with my husband. We watched them together. And by the end of all of them, even like Suspiria, which was real gory at the end there, I turned the TV off and I was like, all right, time to go get ready for bed.
Yeah, I can go.
I
can sleep comfortable tonight. Yeah.
This was the only one that I was like, Matt said, oh, I've already gotten ready for bed, so I'm just going to head up to bed. And I was like, you're going to leave me
You're
alone?
like, hey, turn the lights on. Turn the lights on. Keep the lights on.
I think you should just come with me and we'll go and I'll get ready for bed and you'll stand there next to me while I get ready for bed. And then we'll go upstairs together in the dark together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie, it still bothers me now. Like, what are your final thoughts? You have any more points you got to hit? I know we could talk about it forever.
We could. I know. But I do want to point out, I still want to claim that this isn't technically a witch movie.
Yes.
I would like to say that because I would like to say this group of people, even though they're conducting rituals and spells, the way that I like to view and portray a witch or a pagan or someone who maybe operates in a spirituality closer to mine, this would be more like a cult than it would be a coven of witches. So that would be my final thought, is maybe take that part loosely and enjoy the movie for the entertainment that it is.
Absolutely. The miserable entertainment that it is, right? Yeah. My final thought on this movie is Toni Collette, damn it. An Oscar. Get her one now.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I got to say about it.
I'll present it to her myself.
You know what, though? This is, right? We'll give it, we will make an Oscar.
We'll bring it to her.
And we'll get Toni Collette.
Okay, Toni.
But
reach out. We got you, girl.
We might as well wrap this whole thing up because this is the end. This is the end of the project, but maybe it's just the end of season 1 because I looked and I saw that they had 167 more witch movies and on IMDb. Are you ready to
yeah.
go through some more?
Maybe not 167, but for sure, let's work through that list. We can get season 2
Maybe it'll be something different.
ready for.
Maybe it'll be something different. I mean, this first season, it was only going to be at first it was a pipe dream, and then it turned into real stuff, and then we started watching
Limited
movies.
series.
And then we ended up with
Lots of fun.
with Robin Lively herself. We had Ryan Bartley from her anime queen out there from different movies and stuff, and then we're here. This is our guest. Our final guest is the on location set. Like, we took this thing and ran with it. Now,
It's been a blast.
I want to hear what other people out there got to say and what they want to see us do next, because I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe we can do some gory movies, you know, the kinds I like, where they have a mask on and they got a knife and you know who it is, and that's it.
Yeah, and I will agree with you. On the next time we do a live podcast event,
Yes.
let's do adults only, and we'll do one of the hardcore ones.
Art the Clown.
Autopsy of Jane Doe.
The Terrifiers and stuff. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll do the Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I owe you that, but I feel like we need a good group of adults
Yes.
that are into that kind of thing that can really enjoy it with us. I think that would be a blast.
I'm down. We should screen it in a cemetery. How about that?
Yeah.
Maybe in a morgue.
Ooh.
Anybody out there know a morgue we can film the next live podcast taping in? But I'd love to do that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, reach out.
Yeah, reach out to us. Until the end, that's us. That's it. Let's see. We're good?
Yeah.
I started getting cold. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying not to show it. I'm like,
Oh, we went 42 minutes. That's perfect.